Hi, welcome to Overbox Guitar Tuition. So doing another classic album inspection, and today I'm looking at Riot's 1981 classic Fire Down Under, 40 years old today. So a little interesting story in the build up to this. Riot had done the Rock City album in 1977 on the Ariola label, and then they'd signed to Capitol for 1979's Narita. Now this album got quite a little traction in the UK via the DJ Neil Kay, and they sort of became popular with new wave British heavy metal fans, and they played the first Donington Monsters of Rock. So they recorded this album, just looking at Wikipedia here, it was December 1980, Green Street Recording Studio in New York. But when they submitted it to Capitol thought it was too heavy, they didn't like it, and the band weren't happy with the tracks that Capitol wanted them to include, I think. So basically Capitol dropped them, and I'm guessing the band got the master tapes and were able to put together the album they wanted, and it was picked up by Elektra. So it came out February 9th, 1981 on Elektra Records. It actually made number 49 on the Billboard charts, which is pretty good. I'd imagine Riot was selling, 150,000 albums or more to do that. So they're quite well placed there. But unfortunately, I don't know if they got much tour support after this. And then the singer on this album, Guy Speranza, he left, and he was replaced by another singer called Rhett Forrester for the next album. And basically after that they got dropped and so on. So they're just one of those bands that remain one of the what if bands, should Riot have been bigger. I'm not sure the kind of band who would be really big, but they probably could have had, a more sustained career, certainly. On my Botbrack channel, I'm going to do like a sort of history of their first 5 albums, which will kind of come out towards the end of the year. But anyway, that's kind of brief, kind of little intro to where Riot we're at. So this album comes out, Narita was very well received. I mean, that's a pretty kind of top album as well. But it's a great record. It opens with Swords and Tequila. So I think that title shows their sort of metal credentials. Typically heavy American music at this time, it tends to be hard rock, Van Halen, Aerosmith, Kiss, that type of thing, Montrose. Riot are a bit more metal, the guitar's a bit more punchier, and they have more metal lyrics. So Swords and Tequila is a great opener. And the first thing you notice is the sound, really. It's very basically recorded, this album, but it's recorded well. It's got really punchy kind of bottomy drums. Bass is big. Guitars are really clear, good drive, overdrive on them. And then Guy Speranza's got a really crystal clear voice. He's got good diction. He had a unique voice in sort of rock and metal, I think. Difficult to sort of place. He's not bluesy, he's not soulful, but I can't describe it, but he's got a good feeling. It fitted great with Riot. Track number 2 is title track Fire Down Under. Again, this is a really high tempo, high energy track. It's just 2.5 minutes long, it's great. And then track 3, which is, Feel the Same. That is written by the other guitarist, Rick Ventura. So the guitar team in Riot was Mark Reale, who's the band leader, principal writer, and Rick Ventura. So Rick Ventura turns in the track here, and it's got a totally different vibe to the first 2 tracks, but it works really well. And then track 4 is probably the standout cut on the album, and it's Outlaw. This has got a really cool intro and arpeggiated guitar bit, and then it's got this monster riff, really powerful. The drums and bass of Sandy Slavin and Kip Lemming really locked in on this. Cool vocal harmonies on the chorus, and a brilliant harmony guitar solo, and the fade out solo by Mark Reale is fantastic. So Mark Reale and Rick Ventura are great players, particularly Mark Reale, kind of in the sort of Brown Robinson Gorham mode, high energy sort of pentatonic playing. Track 5, Don't Bring Me Down. This is probably one of the weaker tracks on the album. It's an okay filler track, and that finished the original side 1 of the vinyl. Pretty short, punchy album. This is only 37 minutes. It's all the better for it, in all truth. I mean, albums are too long now, so every time. Opening track, side 2 was Don't Hold Back. So this has got a really cool kind of Thin Lizzy, up-tempo, high energy riff, really cool verse. Changes kind of mood a bit. It's the band that can really kind of throw out some wattage. That's the best way to describe it. The next track again has that kind of fantasy sort of metal lyric that I had on Swords and Tequila, and it's Altar of the King. This is probably my other favourite track on the album. It's got a really nice sort of arpeggiated, slightly kind of classical type of intro with a lovely little guitar line. And then got a great riff, and the groove laid down by Slaven and Lemmings really good on this. Yeah, again, it's kind of, you can hear the Thin Lizzy influence a bit on this, you know, a track like Emerald. Next track is another Rick Ventura track, and again, it differs from the other stuff on the album. This is kind of a really moody track called No Lies. It's got a great verse on it. So these Ventura tracks just bring in like a different mood to the album that works great. And then the second last track, Run For Your Life. Again, it's probably not quite as strong. I'd say the album tails off a bit, but it's got a good energy on this. The last track's the only one I can't really be bothered with. It's called Flashbacks. It's just kind of an instrumental with kind of crowd response from their European tours. It's dedicated to Neil Case. So it's a nice gesture. It just doesn't necessarily work as a song for me. It's not something I tend to switch the album off when that comes. But I definitely get the album 8.5 out of 10. It is a classic of American hard rock and metal, and Riot are a really cult influential band, and for good reason, because I had the songs and I had the playing, I had the chemistry that any great band needs. Obviously, when I do the 5 album thing, I'll go into more detail why it didn't happen for them. But I think they're on Ariola Records for an album, then Capitol. They got dropped by Capitol. Elektra did quite well by them, I think, for this album, but they probably didn't have enough backing. And then the Restless Breed, they changed singer, but they had some good commercial tracks on that. But the band just didn't get any tour support, I don't think. Then they were dropped by them and went on Metal Blade Records. So, they just had no luck there. They had a guy called Steve Loeb producing them, managing them, and he did put a lot of money into the band. They probably needed other people involved later down the line. I think they're just out of the time, really. If this album, maybe they had big gaps between albums as well. Maybe if this album had come out in 1980, only a year after Narita, and then they could have got another album out in 81, 82. Maybe they could have done a Quiet Riot and, pushed that way. The other weird thing was they had quite a cool logo, but they had this weird seal creature who's featured on the cover. And I always liked the seal. He's called Tybor, but he's not like Eddie, Iron Maiden's mascot. It's quite an unusual, pardon me, image. So I don't think that helped him. But very difficult making all these decisions in a band. It's very hard for bands to get everything right. But on this album, Riot certainly got the music right. It's a great record. Cheers.